Hey guys, it's Andrea and welcome to my channel. So today, as you guys can probably tell, I'm starting my new sketchbook for the new year. And because the Chinese New Year is up and coming, I decided I wanted to include a dragon because I thought that would be fun. And I also just love writing in like cursive, so I decided to do that as well. As you can see here, I'm just like lightly sketching it out and planning how I want the letters to look like and how I want the layout to be. I was quite literally obsessed with writing in cursive when I was a kid, and I didn't really do it much like in my high school years, but I've started to get really back into it after an art project that I did for one of my courses. So I'm slowly getting back into it and it's been a lot of fun. I'm really excited to do more like cursive lettering kind of stuff. Now, like a lot of other artists, I have a lot of issues when it comes to using a sketchbook and finishing it. It is oddly enough hard work, but I think a lot of that comes with wanting or expecting myself to make something perfect each and every time I draw something, which is not sustainable at all. So I just decided to go ahead and start a new sketchbook and sort of let go of those pre-established expectations I've made of myself and just start having fun and making stuff even if it isn't the greatest work of all time. So when it came to actually drawing the dragon, I took some inspiration from sculptures and like metal work and as well as just like the regular older paintings of dragons that I really love. And it was a little bit of a hassle. Well, not a hassle, it was a struggle. That's the better word. To get like the face right, I felt like it looked so off at the beginning, but it like slowly started to form together. And for the actual layout of the body's dragon, sorry, the dragon's body, oh my god. I wanted it to sort of like wrap around the name and like the writing. So that's what I'm doing here. At first I was gonna end it like right above the name, but then the bottom corner felt very empty. So you'll see later that I moved the tail so it extends downwards, which I really like. I feel like the previous sketch kind of felt sort of boring or like awkward in a way. It just wasn't very appealing to look at. So I'm glad I made the switch. Also, another slight issue that you will notice afterwards once I actually ink the writing is that I forgot the C in Sketchbook. So right now it does say Skethbook, but I promise you I fix it afterwards. It does say Sketchbook. It does look a little wonky afterwards because I only had so much space to work with. But, it's fine. It's a sketchbook. It doesn't have to be perfect, guys. See, progress. I also decided to add some two little clouds at the bottom corners just because it was feeling very empty even though I had already moved the tail. And I didn't really want to mess with the dragon too much. I was kind of happy at where it was at that point. And clouds are always, I feel like, a very nice inclusion when drawing dragons like this, so it just felt very fitting. So for the inking part, I used the Faber Castell pens. Now, usually I like using my micron pens better, but I've noticed that when I don't use my Faber Castell pens, they immediately dry out and refuse to start working again. So I just kind of want to use them up while I still can and then eventually go back to my microns because I'm not really worried about them. So when I do ink letters like this, I really love adding those like thicker lines on the downstroke just so it's kind of like reminiscent of like a brush pen, and when you're doing calligraphy with that, I feel like it adds a very nice touch, just varying the line weights. it just makes for an overall more interesting piece, at least to me. And also, I know this is a sketchbook, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Um, but yeah, I still think that it's important to try and do my best, not so much for other people's sake, but for my own and for the sake of improvement, I guess. So when it came to actually inking the dragon, I took two different sort of approaches. I took like the outline approach, just outlining the general shape and like details. But I also really wanted to add like small little contour and sort of like hatching lines just to give it a little bit more of a dimension, I guess you could say. Without those sort of like hatching and contour lines, it just looked kind of plain or like also a little bit boring to me. So it just it gives it a little bit more of a dynamic feel, I guess you could say. So for all the thick outlining, I used a .7 size pen. And then for all of the smaller details, I mainly used a .3, but I also did throw in a .5 in some areas, but not that much. I felt like a .3 and a .7 were good enough sizes, and I didn't really want to go any smaller than a .3 just because I felt like it would get kind of lost having such small line work in a page this big, just because this is a two-page spread and the pages themselves are relatively big. Like this is like regular printer size paper, kind of big, like 8.5 by 11. So doing anything less than .3 felt just like excessive or unnecessary in a way. And with the clouds, I also added similar hatching lines to kind of unify it a little better, and so the clouds didn't really feel out of place. Now, doing this two-page spread was actually spread out between 3 different days. Um, it didn't actually take that long time-wise. I think I might have spent an hour or hour and a half doing all of it. But like I said, it wasn't continuous. It was spread out between 3 days. It's just what happened. I didn't really plan to do that, but it worked. So on this second day, I'm adding in all of those like hatching and contouring lines on the dragon, just giving it a little bit more dimension. And similar to the leathering, I wanted to add thicker outlines on certain parts of the dragon. So as you can see in this part, it's mainly I added it on the belly side of the dragon, or on the side of the dragon that was kind of facing away from the head, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, well then hopefully once you see the rest of this, it'll make sense. So then I grabbed this red marker that I had and just did little accent lines on the actual lettering, just because I was planning to color the dragon red and I wanted something red on the letters to sort of tie it in. After having colored in the dragon though, I kind of wish that I had used like a smaller or like a skinnier red marker. Just because in some areas it did feel a little heavy, but it's okay, I guess. So then I decided to color it in with color pencils. I didn't use anything fancy or anything like that. I was originally gonna use some Prismacolors that I had, but then I remember I had another bag of color pencils that I had not used in forever. So I decided to pull those out instead. And I'm really glad I did that just because that bag of colored pencils had a little bit more variations in the reds that they had. I don't really have that many Prismacolors to have that much variation. So just layering all the reds really worked in my favor. And also these color pencils just have really fun names. Like they don't have red. It the name is like I lava you. Like I just think that's funny. So for the body, I used red, but for the belly, I added in orange, and then for the tail and the sort of like spike things on its body, I used yellow, and then for the actual like tail bit and then the head, I did like a mix of red, orange, and yellow to sort of like unify it all. I know I've been saying that word a lot. I'm sorry, but I genuinely cannot think of another word. When it came to coloring the clouds, I just kept it simple and did like a light blue with a purple kind of color for the shadows. I didn't really want to do too much just because I felt like the contouring lines had enough detail as is. I didn't want to take away from the dragon. And just using a deeper red, I did some shadows on the dragon body to just give it a little bit more dimension so it wouldn't feel as flat, especially with the amount of detail that I put onto the belly side of the dragon. And here it is, the finished piece. I hope you guys like it, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.